Let's face it, there's this massive pressure surrounding the idea of turning 30. It's as if the world expects us to have our lives perfectly aligned by this milestone, and for some, that thought can be overwhelming. How many of you have heard the phrase, by 30, you should have your life figured out? If you haven't heard it directly, I'm sure you've felt it, right? The expectations are everywhere. Career, relationships, finances, health, you name it. Society paints this picture of the perfect 30-year-old, someone who has a successful job, a stable home, a family, and everything in between. But here's the catch. What happens when you don't fit that mold? What happens when you're not where you thought you'd be at 30? Or maybe even where society thought you should be? By the time we hit 30, we're expected to have had the perfect education, landed the ideal job, maybe gotten married, started a family, and be well on our way to a life of fulfillment. And if we don't have those things, there's this quiet, almost shameful voice that starts to creep in. It's the voice that asks, "What's wrong with me?" Let me ask you this. Who decided that 30 was the magical age when everything should come together? Who wrote this unwritten rule book that says we must have our entire lives figured out before we even hit the third decade of our existence? Let's stop and think about it. This narrative that we should have it all by 30, where did it come from? We're told, work hard, go to school, get the job, get married, buy a house, have kids, then you can start living the dream. But what if that's not the dream for everyone? What if the idea of having it all isn't even realistic, or dare I say it, even desirable? Maybe the dream is different for each of us, and that's okay. You know, I've talked to a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, some of them at the top of their careers, others just starting out, others still figuring things out. What I've noticed is that even the ones who seem to have it all, those with the fancy jobs, the great houses, the perfect families, are still dealing with their own doubts, struggles, and anxieties. And that's because success, whatever that looks like, doesn't happen in a vacuum. We all have our own pace, our own challenges, and our own timelines. It's easy to think that by 30, we should have all the pieces of the puzzle perfectly placed, right? But life isn't a puzzle. It's more like a messy jigsaw that doesn't always make sense. And that's okay. Some people spend their 20s in confusion, and that's not a sign of failure. It's part of the process. And here's the thing. There's this toxic narrative that if you don't have a stable career or a picture-perfect relationship by 30, you're behind. But what if I told you that some of the most successful people in the world didn't have their breakthrough until later in life? Take Oprah, for example. She was fired from her first TV job at 23 and didn't really hit her stride until she was in her 30s. And then there's Jeff Bezos, who started Amazon in his 30s after years of building his career. The truth is, these people weren't late. They were just on their own path. Here's something I want you to consider. What if the idea of having it all by 30 is actually a form of self-sabotage? By setting this impossible standard, we're constantly measuring ourselves against a myth. We compare our behind the scenes to other people's highlight reels. We scroll through social media and see people's vacations, their accomplishments, their picture-perfect families, and then we look at ourselves and think, I'm not there yet. Am I failing? The reality is, life is not linear. Your path is not going to look the same as everyone else's, and it's not supposed to. I want you to think about this. Success is not just about financial milestones or having a house with a white picket fence. Success is about figuring out what you want, what makes you happy, and working towards that. It's about growth, about learning to embrace failure, and about taking the time to figure things out without feeling the need to rush. So, to the person who feels behind because they don't have their career nailed down yet, I want you to know that it's okay. It's okay if you haven't made it yet. And to the person who feels like they're stuck in a dead-end job, don't let that define your entire journey. You're not failing. You're learning, growing, and evolving. And to the person who feels the weight of not being in a relationship or starting a family, listen, you are not running out of time. There is no deadline for finding love or building a family. Your story doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It's yours to write. And here's the kicker. It's okay not to know exactly where you're going by 30. The pressure to have it all together is suffocating, and it's not necessary. It's okay to be in transition. It's okay to take the scenic route, to change paths and to redefine success as you go. So what does it mean to have it all? Is it money, fame, a big house? Or is it waking up every day excited about what you're doing? Is it knowing who you are, being comfortable in your own skin, and creating a life that feels true to you? Let's put it this way. Having it all might not be a destination. It might be the journey of figuring out what you want. It's about embracing the messy moments, the wrong turns, the failures, and the lessons learned along the way. By 30, you might have some things figured out, or you might not, and that's perfectly fine. Life doesn't follow a checklist, and anyone who tells you it does is probably selling you something. The truth is, we're all just figuring it out as we go, and that's okay.